Hi, my name is Rosie Bellard, and welcome to the Bolivia trip to Dental Hygiene School. Well, I would like to introduce Katie Fleming, who was the lead for the Smiles Forever Bolivia trip. Katie graduated from Clark Community College dental hygiene program in Vancouver, Washington in 1996. She earned her Bachelor's of Science in Dental Hygiene from the University of Washington in 1997. And Katie worked full-time as a dental hygienist in Vancouver, Portland area, and in the greater Seattle area for 11 years before she expanded her career into teaching. Katie began teaching at Shoreline in 2005. She is a second-year lead instructor and specializes in perioscope instruction. And Katie will introduce the panel to you when we get started. So I am going to hand it, oh, you have your microphone on, right? Mm-hmm. So Katie Fleming.
Thank you.
I forgot to introduce myself.
What? Oh.
Thank you.
Okay, so Rosie Bellard is who just introduced me, and she's the dental hygiene program director here at Shoreline Community College. She actually started this study abroad, and she had the opportunity to take students to Bolivia in 2011, and then I took over the program in 2015. So I've had the opportunity to travel twice, and this coming summer will hopefully be my third trip with students. Our fourth trip overall for Shoreline Community College in dental hygiene. One big question I often get is, why are you going to Bolivia? I don't think it's the place in the world where people are, it's probably not one of the highest places for tourist attraction. But I really feel like when you start researching a place, you find out what's unique about that particular place. And I think you could find things that you love and things that are interesting to discover. And especially when you start learning about the history of the country and the different culture that's present, I think you could probably learn to love visiting any place. So for me, having the opportunity to visit Bolivia was really exciting. And since I've been twice, I really can't wait to go again. Traveling internationally like that is an eye-opening experience. It's a fulfilling experience for me personally, but it's also, I think, a great way to give back. We learn how to be dental hygienists here, and we can take those skills and help people who might not ever get the opportunity to have dental care. So kind of in general, our trips, we collect a lot of supplies before we go. We have had groups between like 7 and 11 students, and we're affiliated with Smiles Forever, who is the one and only dental hygiene school in all of South America. Smiles Forever was founded in 2000 by an American dental hygienist who went there initially as a humanitarian trip, and she was just really overwhelmed with the amount of poverty and also the lack of resources for the people, specifically women, and like the lack of career options that women have in Bolivia. So she felt like that really became her passion to try and create something different for the people there. And so she started the Smiles Forever Dental Hygiene School. And we are now affiliated with Smiles Forever. Smiles Forever, their mission statement is to break the cycle of poverty through education. And I feel like that's something that here at Shoreline we are aligned with. And that's something that we want to be part of. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is do our study abroads and provide opportunity for people who would normally not get any dental care. And along the way, the experiences that you have personally are really amazing. The people that you meet, the culture, all those differences, for me is one of the more rewarding things that I've ever done. So if you're interested in doing a study abroad, whether you have a healthcare background or if you are just interested in possibly doing a study abroad in any other discipline, I strongly recommend that you really go for it. I feel like it's the biggest opportunity that I didn't take advantage of when I was a student. I didn't know that I would be able to have this opportunity when I first got into the career of dental hygiene. So I really think that if you have the opportunity, whether it's you're interested in the dental hygiene study abroad or any other study abroad that's offered at Shoreline campus, I really encourage you to go for it. I feel like it'll be one of the more rewarding trips that you'll ever do. So in addition to traveling to Bolivia and doing our outreach programs, we used a lot of mobile equipment. So some of this equipment is equipment that Smiles Forever owns, and we're able to use that. We work with their students when we do our outreach programs and provide our patient care to the people there. But a lot of the disposable stuff we bring with us, like toothbrushes, floss, fluoride, all the disposable supplies that we need when we're providing patient care. So we bring that all with us, and then anything that's left over, we just donate to the school. But you can kind of see it takes a lot of teamwork. It's a little bit different than the type of care that you're going to do here, because you normally have just like one person providing care for that one patient. When you're doing community approach, you're seeing the volume of patients that you see in a day is so much higher. That teamwork is really key, which actually turns out to be one of my favorite things, getting everybody to work together, figuring out ways to make it work when you have limited resources, limited space, and the number, like 100 people to see in a day, for example. In addition to participating in the outreach programs, we try to make just travel and seeing different parts of the country a big priority as well. So, for example, we visited Mount Chacaltaya, which, if you're familiar with Bolivia at all, it has a very diverse climate. They have some of the highest elevations. The mountain that we were at was well over the height of Mount Rainier. And then they also have like jungle regions, which is where we did some of our outreach programs. And so you're traveling from probably the highest elevation you'll ever be in your life, right down to sea level. We also visited Lake Titicaca, which is one of the largest lakes in the world. It borders between Bolivia and Peru. And there's a lot of history and culture there as well. So that was a really interesting trip, and it was just a really beautiful day to be able to go and visit there. Toward the end of the trip, we were able to extend our trip into Peru, and we were able to stay in Cuzco, travel through the Sacred Valley, and go to Machu Picchu. So I'm guessing that's probably the one place everyone's most familiar with. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. It didn't disappoint for me. I would go back again. I thought that was an amazing part of it as well. One thing that I did find really interesting, so again, if you are somebody who's interested in possibly doing a study abroad, when I asked my students what was your favorite day of the entire trip, and that's like, we've already visited the mountain, we've already gone to Lake Titicaca, we've already gone to Machu Picchu in the Sacred Valley. They really couldn't make a choice, because they felt like some of the volunteer days, there was a patient or a group of students who they bonded with in such a special way that for them, that was probably their favorite day. But then they're like, but we did go to Machu Picchu. So when you think about it from that perspective, I think that's a pretty profound statement, because students aren't just there for their own experience. They really are like, their experience is so much more, because they feel like they've really given back, learned from the people that we met, learned from the students that are there at Smiles Forever that we worked with, and just get that feeling of like giving back, doing something that's bigger than yourself. They've been here at Shoreline for at least 2 years, if not 4, as a student, and gaining skills to be a dental hygienist, and then they're able to go someplace like Bolivia and use that to give back to somebody else. And I think that's like the biggest reward that you could really ever have. So if anybody has any questions or anything like that, I could talk about this trip forever, because really it's one of the best experiences I've ever done. I would also like to give the students a chance to talk about some of the highlights that they had on the trip. So of the 4 students that we have here, they are graduating in 19 days? 18 days. So it's a big milestone, right? And so we have Dan, Emily, Kaylee, and Janelle, and they all went on the trip in 2017. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to talk specifically about some of the things that they loved the most, maybe the reason they decided to go on the trip, the big takeaways that they had.
Is this on? Okay.
Yep.
So the reason I decided to go on the trip was because I wanted to have the opportunity to experience another culture and to practice what I had learned here at Shoreline in a different environment. Like Katie had said, it was really neat to go and drink from the Fountain of Youth or to swim in Lake Titicaca and to see Machu Picchu. But you could take the mountain. I didn't really care for the mountain too much. It was exhausting climbing to the top of that. But the most significant thing for me, though, well, there was two events really. We played a pickup basketball game with the kids at the school that we went to, and it was fun just to bond with them in that way and to experience, what they wanted to do and on their terms as opposed to, just going to the dentist or whatever. The score is still disputed to this day about who won that game, but that's another thing altogether. And then for me, the second thing was they had a day there when we were in one of the cities where there was no motor vehicles allowed throughout the entire country. And you had to either ride a bike or walk wherever you wanted to go, and it was a day for families to get together. And we were in one of their major commerce hubs, and there were literally no vehicles whatsoever on the road. And it was kind of breathtaking to see all the families out there interacting together and to just stop and listen, because you could actually hear the world around you as opposed to the noise that's caused from all the automobiles. And for me, and I hadn't been on a bicycle in probably 20 years, so that was kind of fun to go out there and do that. But I broke my bike. They're not made for 200-pound men down there. So,
He broke it.
But it was a great experience to go and get that, because we don't have that here. And I think it's something we could use.
So I decided to go on the trip because I really did want to start using our skills. It was really cool to have an opportunity like that to start practicing dental hygiene for a purpose for people who really needed it right away while still in school even. And I wanted to experience another culture, so I wanted to travel with a purpose, basically. And it was such an incredible opportunity. You could not spend money on anything better. And once I graduate, I plan on continuing to do projects like this. They have dental programs like this that go all over the world, and I plan on pursuing as many of them as I can get my hands on. Let's see, I think one of my favorite moments was teaching the teenage boys how to floss. When you teach somebody how to floss, you want them to wrap the floss around their middle fingers, and they thought that was really funny. So that was an entertaining moment for me. But overall, the entire experience was phenomenal, and I would urge anybody who wants to do a study abroad to absolutely pursue it.
Hello, I'm Kaylee. So the reason I wanted to go on this trip and actually pursue dental hygiene was so that I could provide clinical skills to people who really need it. So this was the perfect opportunity to do that, and it exceeded my expectations. I really enjoyed the trip a lot. I don't think I could pick a favorite moment, but it was just so varied. We did so much, but I was lucky enough to experience my birthday there, so that was fun. And to see, it was the most exotic place I've ever been, so that was just a great experience for me too. And like Emily said, I would encourage anybody who's considering going on a study abroad trip to do it. This is something that I hope to do again in the future in my career. So.
Hi. So just like everyone else, I just wanted to have the opportunity to provide care to people who really needed it. It was really cool because we provided care to people who usually wouldn't have access to it at all. And one of my favorite parts was just getting to meet all the little kids who we saw, because they were all so sweet. And even though they had tons of cavities, they still had a smile on their face, and they were so sweet as we were giving them the care, and they didn't cry or complain. And it was really amazing just to see and to know that we were doing something to really improve their health and their mouth. Just like Emily and Kaylee, I want to continue to do this after I graduate. I really am passionate about going to other countries just to provide care with a skill that I have learned here at Shoreline, and I would encourage anyone to go on a study abroad trip.
So our next group of students we're set to go this summer. We always travel. All study abroads on campus can't interfere with the college calendar, meaning you can't miss classes to go on a study abroad. So we are always like toward the end of August and into the beginning of September for our study abroads. And we currently have an opening, so if anybody's interested, there's still an opportunity for this summer. And even if dental hygiene isn't your main field of study, there's other fields of study that would be really applicable to this particular trip, especially if you're interested in like Spanish speaking, any type of degree that involves speaking Spanish. You would be immersed in a Spanish speaking culture for almost 3 full weeks. You could be like clinical translator. You could also have the opportunity to speak Spanish with people the whole time you're there pretty much. And that's one thing that's really interesting to me is we have students every year who, before we go, like I don't speak Spanish. I've just tried to study for the last month or so on my own, watch some Spanish television, that type of thing. And once they get there and they get with people who are just speaking it all the time, they pick it up so quickly. So it's really impressive. So if anybody has any questions about our study abroad or study abroads in general. Yeah.
Hi, so I have a question about like what do you guys feel like the difference of the resources they are like in Bolivia compared to the US? Are you guys shocked about, you know, how limited the resources are, or are you shocked that, you know, when you're treating a patient, are you shocked that they don't have certain access to the, you know, resources that you have in US? How's it different, and, you know, how do you guys, you know, take care of that?
We were very resourceful. You can see in the pictures we used hiking headlamps as our light source. I know if you've been to the dentist before, you know that they have those overhead lights that you can position it however you want and have really good light and see what you're doing, but we didn't have that. We also didn't have chairs that we could make exactly the level we wanted. They just kind of laid straight back, and that was the position they were in. So we just had to work around that. We had to clean out a classroom in the school that's usually a storage room. I mean, I could go on and on about how we had to adapt to the lack of resources they had. So yeah, it was really shocking for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually surprised by the amount of stuff they did have, though. The clinic that provides the care outside the jungle there, they had a lot. They were pretty modern, actually. And I think one of the fundamental differences for me was that things that we consider disposable, they would actually sterilize and reuse because they don't have the access to all the things that we do that, you know, that we just dispose of. I think for them, for the most part, it's an access to care issue as opposed to supplies for the people, and also a priority, you know, for the preventative dental care as opposed to the restorative after their teeth have already gotten cavities or whatever. Because a lot of the people, I felt, they had like the caps and stuff around their teeth when they were the adults. It was just different stylistically than what we have in America.
Yeah, I would say I appreciated how much diversity there was there, because when we were in like Cochabamba, where the Smiles Forever Foundation and school is, like Dan said, it's very modern and can be very similar to what we experience here. It's a big city. The only thing is that it's, you know, we have like one dentist for every 1,700 people, whereas they have one dentist for every 10,000 people. But once we got out into where we actually treated patients in Via Tunari in a tiny little village in the Amazon basin, then yeah, things changed a little bit. It got a lot less modern in a hurry, and it was interesting to see that diversity and to have to adapt and overcome in spite of all of the technology we have here when we're learning.
One thing that was really eye-opening for me as well is students really understand how to adapt and be fluid within a situation. They're used to working in their clinic. They're used to having all of the supplies that they have. And then, for example, we were working out of a mobile clinic, and they were trying to get us to reuse the same suction for every single patient, because they kept telling us it's just spit. It's their spit, it's his spit, it's her spit. It's all just spit. And there were a lot of things that we could compromise on, like the way that they had their sterilization system set up, the items that they chose not to throw away versus things that we would throw away. There's a lot of flexibility that you can have, but you also have to know when you can't have that flexibility. And when they're trying to do that where you know you're cross-contaminating, there's just a time when you just have to say no. And I think that can be done really politely. We worked it out really well. It didn't become a big issue, but that's one of the learning moments, I think, for us, is you have to know where the line is really drawn, because where the line is drawn here and where the line is drawn there is not the same place. But you have to know when you just can't cross anymore. And so that was an extremely proud moment for me as well as the instructor, for just my students to be able to stand up and say, wait a minute, we can't do this. So.
Hi guys. My question is that I'm assuming the fact that you guys are doing an out research program is that they don't get that service in a while. I guess they don't get to approach it a lot in everyday kind of us. But what were your expectations going in, and if you actually, since you guys encountered it, was it severe as it thought, or it was actually okay in a dental hygiene way? Was it anything? Because I'm assuming I don't know much about Bolivia. It's just something, if you're going out there giving a service, I feel like they're not used to all those service. They might have a stuff going on, and just wondering how you guys thought about that.
I really didn't know what to expect going there, but I can assure you that with the kids, it was far worse than what I had ever imagined, simply because every child that we saw had cavities, and you have to understand that when you go to the dentist here, they take x-rays to determine if you have cavities or not. There, the determination was made because it was their teeth were clinically rotting out of their mouth, so you could see what was happening. And it was a twofold issue, really. Partially, they don't have access to care, and then you follow that up with the diet, with the introduction of Coca-Cola or whatever else there. It was actually cheaper to buy a Coke than it would have been to get a glass of water or a bottle of water. So without, that compounded the issue of not having the care or whatever. So it was eye-opening for me, actually. I don't remember who said it earlier, but the kids didn't cry. I would have expected, had that been here in America, the condition of their teeth, it was appalling, actually.
Mm-hmm. I really think that they have learned to live in pain.
Yeah.
They really have learned to live in pain.
I knew it was going to be bad, but it was worse than I expected, for sure.
So when you look at the photos, these are a lot of these photos are pictures that we took during our mobile clinic outreach programs. And one thing that I found interesting when we first got there is most of the kids are dressed in uniform, and their uniforms are normally really clean. And but when you see where the people actually live, it is shocking to me that that's what they look like by the time they get to school, because I'm still not exactly sure how they are able to launder their clothes as well as they do. And so I think that all comes from their pride again. They want their kids to go to school. They want their children to be educated. It comes from a source of pride for those people, because the amount of the number of uneducated people in Bolivia is a really staggering number. And I think that's one reason the decay is so rampant, is even when you're telling them, brush your teeth, they might be able to copy what you're doing, but they don't really understand why they're supposed to do it. And so that's one of the things that Smiles Forever is really trying to change, is like really get the education, not just to the kids, but getting the parents involved as well, getting the teachers involved. That was one of the keys they didn't understand when they first started their program in 2000. They were just educating the kids, and it was going kind of nowhere. So then they started educating the parents as well, and that started to see a little bit of a change. But when they were able to get the teachers at the schools involved, that's when they really started seeing the difference. So there's still rampant decay, there's still so much of it, but I do think that they're starting to make a difference there.
So my question was really, so you're dental hygienists, what kind of procedures can you do while you're there? What kind of interventions are you able to do to make a difference for them?
So first and foremost, the biggest difference that was kind of what Katie was just talking about, it's hygiene education. It's just teaching you why you brush your teeth, when to brush your teeth, how to brush your teeth, when to floss, because that's the biggest way that you can make a change in somebody's oral hygiene. But then as far as the services we provided, we gave teeth cleanings, just like we do here for some of them. But more than that, we were there to apply this product called silver diamine fluoride, which is fairly new to the market. And it is a product that when applied to decay in the teeth, it can completely arrest the decay. So we were actually, there's a picture of a little kid up here of his tooth, and you can see the front of it is black. It's turned black because that silver diamine fluoride was applied to it, but it is now just as hard as it was when it was originally enamel before decay started. And he's going to keep that tooth because of that. So I don't know, it was interesting learning about that product too.
In addition to the kids being able to keep their teeth because they're getting these preventive services and they're getting the silver diamine fluoride applied to their teeth, the amount of infection that it protects the children from. Because, I mean, we saw kids whose teeth were like decayed to the point that I'm sure they were in so much pain at some point that they probably couldn't sleep, they probably weren't eating much. The tooth finally kind of resolved on its own, but like you would see areas where the tissues are starting to like pull away and the tooth is almost falling out on its own because it's just been such a chronic problem for so long. So when you're able to use a product like silver diamine fluoride, get it on those patients' teeth, if the cavity is already there, if you're able to arrest it, not only do they get to keep that tooth, but it's going to prevent so much pain. Malnutrition is a huge problem in countries like Bolivia, and I think that's a big reason why, is they just are in pain so often that they can't chew well. They don't want to eat certain types of foods because their teeth are in such bad shape. If anybody ever has to go into the hospital or something like that because they're sick, there's times when they can't have surgeries done because they have such a high amount of infection in their mouth that they have to get all of that stabilized before they can even go into surgery. So those are just kind of examples that you don't see often here.
I have a question. Can you talk a little bit more, any of you, about you spent some of that time, I think 21 days total, at the clinic, the Smiles Forever clinic, but you also did this outreach activity, which I assume took you to other cities and villages. Can you talk a little bit about some of that outreach? I really wish, it's my bad for not having a nice map of Bolivia up here, because you were in Cochabamba, 14,000 feet if I recall.
Cochabamba is probably like 9,000 feet.
Okay, that's right, it's down, it's below the airport. But some of the other places are different elevations, and as one of you said, the socioeconomic conditions change pretty quickly. So I'd be curious to talk a little bit about where you did the outreach and what that was like compared to back at the school.
I just want to tell you one quick anecdotal story. So there's one road that's into the jungle from where we were in Cochabamba, and on the way down there, a cement truck tipped over, just holding pallets, and it was literally a 7-hour just sit on the side of this road where there was nothing there. And it was right out of a movie, and I'm a kind of a high-strung guy, I guess, and I got bored being penned up in this truck, so I decided to walk up and see people, and I actually had the opportunity to walk about a mile up the road before I caught the head group right there. But as you leave the city, you can literally see the socioeconomic status of the people change. So in the city, it would not be uncommon necessarily to see some animals that you wouldn't expect to see in a city in Seattle, such as chickens or whatever. But as you start to go through or out of there, all you start to see is farm animals and then shacks and then things that you wouldn't expect people to be living in. And they're interspersed throughout the entire roadway from this area of the city, the 4 hours later into the jungle, where there's intermittently will be a house with a pig out front and a llama or whatever else. So it's kind of it was kind of cool actually.
We did spend a lot. Well, we spent a few days in Cochabamba, which was, I guess, the more modern area we were talking about, and there is where we kind of packed supplies. So we did do part of the work there to organize like toothbrushes for older kids or really little kids, floss, the fluoride, so that when we got there we could easily disperse them to everybody. And then once we were organized there, we went to Viutunari, which is the Amazon basin village, and that was where we set up our room at the school where we provided the services. And then we went classroom to classroom, so that first the kids were receiving a sort of presentation on education all together. Then they would kind of line up classroom by classroom, go out to the sinks, and we would actually show them how to brush their teeth and how to floss. We did our best with the Spanish. and then after that, they would line up outside of the room to get the services actually provided. So that was kind of the way it was organized.
Tell them about like traveling from one place to the other and stopping in one of those places out in the middle of nowhere and buying.
Terrifying. They pass each other like I was terrified a few times. I mean, the road is just back and forth, super small, and even though they'll see someone coming, they just start passing the person in front of them, like, and to where it's just coming so close and they're not even flinching. I had to close my eyes a few times. It was crazy.
So before we left for that trip to the jungle, the students, a few of them asked me, how long is the drive? Because I kept telling them it's a long drive. We have to get up really early. I think we got up at 3 that morning or something, and because we wanted to, get on the road. And they were like, how long is the drive? And I was like, well, I think it's 4 hours, give or take 2. And they were like, what do you mean, give or take 2? And I'm like, well, wait till you see the road. It's a 2-lane road, the way the people drive. And so we drive much slower. We are on the more conservative side of that. We don't pass often, which means you get stuck behind a lot of the slow-moving, like freight trucks and stuff like that. But when you see what's out there, I mean, the people that can make that drive in 3 hours, they're really pedal to the metal, and it is kind of a scary situation. But then, like Dan said, one accident shuts the entire road down. I mean, that accident happened, I think, the night before. And we kept thinking, oh, it'll be cleared by the time we get there, and it wasn't. Then we're stuck, and there's really nothing to do but you just sit there and wait, because you're like halfway between the city and kind of nowhere,
And the reason we even got moving was because townspeople ended up just pushing the truck out of the way. No services ever showed up. There was one cop there that was kind of standing there. Just,
Yeah, he didn't.
I'm not sure.
He
what
didn't
he
do
was
much.
doing.
No.
He was
So
there to
people
watch.
people were there overnight. So
Yeah.
they were like, all right, well, we have places to go. So they just kind of banded together and moved the truck.
Yep, yeah, so it was the people that were stuck in the traffic jam that ended up clearing it and getting on the road again. Yeah.
The traffic, as people were waiting, it was a 2-lane road. They occupied both sides of the road. So if you were heading northbound and there was a southbound lane, it was no longer a southbound lane. All the northbound traffic got in the southbound lane heading that way. So it complicated issues. And the police didn't care. It
But for
was
no
really a matter
reason.
of who had the loudest horn. And yeah, it was fun.
You still had to merge together. Partway through that traffic jam, the one lady in my car was like, what is Dan gonna do? What is he gonna do in this traffic jam? I mean, he's gonna be stuck in that car. And I was like, don't worry. Dan can figure himself out. And not 5 minutes later, he's knocking on our window. What are you guys doing? I'm like, stuck in a traffic jam. What are you doing? He walked up the road like a mile.
I think one of the neat things too about when you go to another country is you don't have necessarily all the same restrictions that you might have in America. So the mountain we went up, we rode a bus up there for a large portion of it, and we went over like wooden bridges along the way that I think were held together by termites and on this bus, and the ledge, the tires would kind of be over the ledge of this mountain. And when Katie was talking about the height of it, it's literally a mile higher than Mount Rainier. So it's way up there.
I
And
think
you can
it's
look
just
the
over
cliff.
17,000 feet, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Mount Rainier's
Yeah.
like 14 and a half.
Yeah,
And this one
it
was,
was way up there. And but it also, when you do stuff like we went on a river rafting trip on a Amazon tributary, and the guys just pulled off to the side of the river and had us climb up this cliff, and then we jumped off of it and that was really cool because there were people that might not like heights all that much, but once they climbed up, there was no way to get down but jumping off of the thing. So it was a lot of fun. It's just neat to be able to experience some stuff like that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to do on a trip here.
Can I ask another question? And this is probably more for Katie, but this program has been going on for what, 7 or 8 years? I think the first time.
the first trip was in 2011,
Yeah.
and then the second one was 15, 17, and this will be fourth.
I'm wondering, how have you seen your relationship evolving with the government of Bolivia, with the school who is your sponsor, or has it not changed? Who are your patrons?
The relationship with Smiles Forever, I think, has improved a lot. For one thing, Sandy Kemper is the founder of Smiles Forever, and she lives in Bolivia most of the time, and then she comes to the United States to visit her family. But she's kind of flipped that just in the last year or so. So she's here more often than she's in Bolivia, and some people are helping run her school down there. So I'm just able to see her more often. It's easier to call. It's easier to get a hold of her, things like that, when I need to get a hold of her and talk to her about things. So that part of it, and just having been there before, understanding like where the city is, what parts of the city we really don't want to get our hotel in. Those are all things that are just easier for me now. The school itself really hasn't changed much. They've struggled with the Bolivian government almost since they opened in trying to get dental hygiene recognized as a health occupation in the country of Bolivia. For example, they have registered nurses in Bolivia, but they don't have a registered dental hygienist yet. Like here in the United States, you have to be a registered dental hygienist to practice dental hygiene. And in Bolivia, they haven't been able to get that passed through the government yet, like to really emphasize to them the importance of oral hygiene, the role that a dental hygienist really has, and why that's important for the country to take it on as an actual recognized profession. So those are things that they're still really struggling with. One reason we take so many supplies with us is because they don't make those supplies in the country. It's not just that Smiles Forever doesn't have the resources to purchase those disposable products and the things they need to really clean a person's teeth properly, that those products aren't actually available for purchase in the country. And trying to get those through customs, like there's several companies in the United States, for example, and probably other countries as well, who are willing to donate product to Smiles Forever just to like support and keep the prevention program going, but you can't get the product through customs. So we get donations, we take them with us, we leave whatever we don't use there. But Sandy knows several people who travel between the United States and Bolivia, and they're constant. I mean, they always have at least one extra suitcase, and they're taking supplies down with them. So
your interaction is really mostly with her and the school, not directly with the government.
Right.
That's
yeah.
nice.
I mean, you have interesting things happen in the airport. We had our sets of like scaling instruments in our suitcases. We got pulled over at customs to check that out. They really questioned why we had like an entire duffel bag of toothbrushes. We probably had like 1,000 toothbrushes in this one duffel bag. But the questions were directly about if we were going to sell those products or not. They didn't want us taking product there that we could profit off of. And so you get letters from the Smiles Forever School that specifically show like they're a volunteer group, they're associated with us, we're doing these volunteer activities, these toothbrushes are going to be given away. And once they were able to see those letters and ask me a few questions, I was able to go through with my bag of toothbrushes. But that's a big obstacle. I know a few years ago a group went down. It wasn't part of the Shoreline group, but a different group went down, and the Smiles Forever School needed new sterilizers. The ones that they had were so old that they often weren't working, and they could never get the sterilizers through customs. So what they finally did is they took new ones and brought the old ones back. And the customs agents didn't realize that it was the old product coming back through. And that's the only way they were able to get those sterilizing machines into the country and actually be able to leave them there. And it just doesn't make sense because they're just providing a service, and it's really in everyone's best interest to operate with sterile equipment, but they don't get it, and for whatever reason they kind of don't want to, I guess, or whatever the obstacle is there. But that's a big obstacle, is just like finding enough resources to keep their clinic open. The clinic is completely nonprofit, so no student ever pays tuition. And they only accept women. A big reason is because they're trying to offer career options to women because there just really aren't very many career options for women in Bolivia. And just like really trying to educate the women through example that there's options outside of staying home with your family. Not that that is a horrible thing to do or anything like that, but showing them really through example that there's a way to support your family. You can get a career, you can buy a house, you can do these things to like actually take better care of yourself and your family. So it's been a really successful model.
There were traditional roles quite often there, and to speak to Katie's point about not having men doing hygiene or whatever, the girls, the students, they were astonished when I was like sterilizing instruments or running the little station there, and they wanted to come up and help or whatever, and I'm like, this is my area, you got to go over there and go do something else or whatever. So they want to get their pictures taken and all that kind of stuff because they're not used to seeing men necessarily do that, or what Katie was saying, they follow often a traditional model of by gender roles of what people are supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of cool to see that.
Some of the students who have graduated from the Smiles Forever Dental Hygiene School have decided to go back. They've become dentists. That's not very common in Bolivia for a female to become a dentist. So there's some groundbreaking things happening there that are pretty awesome to see. And it's, again, I strongly encourage you to try to study abroad if you have the opportunity, because hearing about it and seeing it yourself are two very different things.
So what does become of the dental hygiene, the Bolivian dental hygiene students, and how much did you interact with those students versus just your own teammates? So two-part question.
Yeah, so all of the outreach programs that we do are in conjunction with the Smiles Forever School, and their students are doing the same project that we're doing. And so there were times when we had kind of like our separate teams. There are certain things there that they really want to do themselves. And I think that I think it's safe to say that they're pretty shy. They don't tend to be the ones that are like reaching out to meet us as much. We have to really push that and encourage it. But the Smiles Forever School, the directors of the Smiles Forever School really try hard to set up the team so we're mixed. So we've got like Shoreline students always working with Smiles Forever students. Even within the same clinic, so like the clinic that you're seeing photos of up here, there were 4 chairs in that one room. If the Smiles Forever students had it their way, they would have 1 or 2 chairs to themselves, and we would have 1 or 2 chairs to ourselves, and that's just how every day would go. But the Smiles Forever directors don't really allow that to happen, and our students up to this point, I mean, we've always had students that are just willing to jump in there, meet the other people, and work together. There's a language barrier there for a lot of us. but a lot of it you can just kind of figure out and work through. So definitely working together with them. Like Dan said, they kept trying to take over sterilization. Like, no, I know how to do this. And he's like, no, this is my turn. Like, you guys have been doing all the sterilization for 2 days. You shouldn't have to do it all yourself. I'm gonna help you. But it's so hard for them to let that go. So part of it is, I think they just, they don't necessarily understand what we're trying to tell them, but there's also, I think, a pride issue. Like, these are our projects. We are learning how to do this, and they're really proud of what they can do, and they want to show us that they know that they can do the same things that we can. And so you kind of have to like play that dance a little bit of like, we want to help you, not do everything for you. We also want you to show us how you do your way so we can learn it, so we can help you do the same.
We broke up into our teams initially just for the ease of keeping up with the schedule that we had set, because there's only a certain number of days you got to see a certain number of people. But once we were on schedule and understood the flow of the clinic, because it, as my friends here had alluded to earlier, you know, it's kind of in a warehouse room, and you got to understand how it's going to all work out. Once we figured that out and cracked the code on that, we were able to break up into their teams as well and work with them after the flow of the clinic had established itself, and we understood what was going to be happening. For instance, the education piece, we were intermixed the entire time. It would be a Bolivian hygiene student with one of us, and we'd go in the classroom and teach the kids or whatever else was going on, and they'd be there to assist that. What did they say? It was like there were 700 kids or something like that over the 5 days that we saw. So you had to keep it moving.
Yeah,
right?
you had to keep it moving. So I think that's a good point. Initially, we had to learn the system as well. So we kind of like did our own team, and they did their own team. And then once we got the flow, we were able to mix it up and start working with everyone else. And we were able to keep that pace.
And there is a thing such as Bolivian time where they might
For
not
sure.
operate like on Swiss clocks or whatever. So we were kind of schedule driven. So after we all like worked out all the finer nuances of all that, it really helped to flow. But we had to get our stuff together too.
And beyond the clinical work, we also stayed together in the same hotel or whatever it was called, a resort sort of thing. I got assigned to be in a cabin with all of the students there, and the language barrier was real. I've never taken Spanish in my entire life, but I picked up a lot, and I stayed in a cabin with them, and that was cool. And they all actually made us a big dinner one night, so we did spend a lot of time with the students there and got to know them too, so it was fun.
Yeah, that's true. That was fun because we lived with them for like that whole week, and you were just doing everything together, which really is when you really got to know each other, and that's when it became even more fun. Not that it wasn't fun before, but it did make it even more fun.
I rode in a truck with them back from the jungle, and I'm the least Spanish-speaking person of the group, so that
Except for me.
That was pretty interesting. So they were awesome, and we're friends on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So you're able to follow each other or keep track of each other and stuff like that. I honestly wish that if I didn't have to go and get a job now that I'm graduating, I would go back, and I hope that next year I'm in a financial position where I'll be able to do that.
Okay, I think we need to end it. Please join me in giving Professor Fleming and the students a round of applause. Thank you all very much for
Thank you.
sharing your experiences and your thoughts.